Hello, chess friends, and welcome to Azadov's chess channel, and welcome to the Tata Steel Masters tournament in 2020 in Wijk in Netherlands. So today I decided to show you a great game from the round 3. It is Jorden van Foreest against Daniil Dubov. Jorden van Foreest is really a cool guy, I think, in this tournament. He hasn't drawn a game. He has 2 wins and only 1 loss, and I think he's very attractive to watch because his games are really attacking games with some great tactical motifs, with also many mistakes, but I like mistakes. When we have mistakes, then we have also attractive games, so that's why I decided to show you first this game from the round 3. Here, as I said, with the white pieces, we have Jorden van Foreest against Daniil Dubov. So let's see what happened. E4 played by Jorden van Foreest. We have c5, knight to f3, knight to c6, and now we have c3, which Jorden van Foreest also played in the first round of this Tata Steel tournament, this Alpine variation of the Sicilian, with the preparation to play the move d4. It's still common theory, but most of the times the best way, I think, is counterplay with this move d5. But in the game, Daniil Dubov played a very interesting line, knight to f6, also a common line in the Alpine variation. Here e5. After knight to d5, we have bishop to c4 played by Jorden van Foreest, knight to b6, and now bishop to b3. And there is one problem in White's position here. Here I think Daniil Dubov played the correct move, c4, closing the bishop, and after bishop to c2 we have always the problems of this backward pawn. So the backward pawn has to be improved here. You want, of course, to have maybe something like d4 here, and maybe to somehow try to develop your bishop, maybe play something like knight to a3 castling, and get use of our space advantage that we have created on the other side of the board. So basically chess is all about space. Here I think white has this space control with this move e5, but you want to hang on to this space control. That's why this d4 move is really important in order to get this pawn protected. So in the game d5 played by Daniil Dubov, we have e takes d6, we have queen to d6, and now castling played by Jorden van Foreest. And I think here g6 is not the best way to proceed. I think there are better lines than this line, although it's also played in top grandmaster level. But it's just my opinion. I simply like this idea to play bishop to g4 more, because if you try h3 here to kick away the bishop, there are now several choices. You can even try here the very aggressive move bishop to h5, or you can also try h5, which is very interesting. After something like h takes g4, we have h takes g4, and the problem is you have to go with somewhere with your knight, and here this h2 square is not protected, so there are even some checkmate threats. But even if you play a calm move like bishop to h5, after something like, I don't know, rook to e1, which seems like a natural move, I like queenside castling here from black's perspective. It looks really tempting, I think, because we have 2 powerful knights in front of the king. We have the powerful control of the d file. Still, this bishop is annoying here, I think, on h5, pinning this knight. And you see, the problem is you cannot play the move d4, because we have here the possibility to play en passant, c takes d3, and here the bishop is locked. You have to play bishop to b3, or you're losing simply a pawn. So you see, with this idea to create this backward pawn, it's always dangerous to play this variation. I myself don't recommend you to play the Alpine variation. You see how dangerous it can be. Here I watched the game Vichy Anand crushed in this particular position that I've set up here for you. Really great game here in this Alpine variation. So here in the game g6, it's of course a developing move. You don't lose anything. Bishop to g7 is the possibility, aiming here on this very powerful diagonal. But I still think that this bishop to g4 is much more aggressive. It's much more forcing white to do something. Here after g6, it leaves now Jorden van Foreest the opportunity to regroup a little bit. Here bishop to g7 was played, and now b3. Here I think knight to b5 doesn't bring you so much. It seems like a good move, kicking away the queen, but the queen can always go to queen to b8. If you try d4, again we have the possibility to play en passant, c takes d3, after queen to d3, bishop to f5, and after something like queen to d2, we can simply take, I think, the bishop queen takes c2, and now castling. This activity of this bishop of blacks is simply better than this one. Of course, you can play something like bishop to g5, but after e6, I think black has solved all of the positional problems and continues maybe with something like a6, maybe even a5, a4, a3, trying maybe a minority attack here on the queen side. So these are the ideas in the game. Instead of this knight to b5, as said, b3 was played, and here c takes b3 was played by Daniil Dubov, and this was, I think, a slight inaccuracy. Maybe a better way is to proceed here knight, pardon me, not to take here the pawn on b3, maybe try something like bishop to e6. Bishop to e6 after something like knight to g5, I still think you can stay with your bishop here on this very important diagonal, covering this pawn after something like, I don't know, knight to c4, knight takes c4, b takes c4, now bishop to c4. Still, I think black has a better activity than in this particular line. After c takes b3, it allows again Jorden van Foreest to get his pawns connected. This is the most important thing, and now the main idea is really this move d4. So in the game, Daniil Dubov castled. Now we have the move d4, and you see how dangerous this pawn structure is that Jorden van Foreest has created here. The idea is, of course, to play c4, and then if the position allows d5. If we improve this position of the pawns, we would have a pawn storm in the center. So that's why maybe this wasn't the best of the line. Still, the evaluation is equal, but I simply like these other positions more from black's perspective. Here bishop to g4 was played, and now comes this move h3, but it comes a little bit too late because now queen to f3, and now white is continuing the game with the bishop pair, which is a good bishop pair, I think, because it has good diagonals. It's not a closed position, we still have an open position, so these bishops can really play very active in this game. e5 played by Daniil Dubov, and now comes this move knight to b5, but now it's a whole different position because now the queen is really endangered. Queen to d7 was played, and now rook to d1. And if you try something like e takes d4, it seems like a good move. Knight takes d4, knight takes c takes d4 after something like knight to d5 in order to create sort of a blocking system. I think we can simply play bishop to e4. If you try to cover here with rook to e8, then rook to a5 is very dangerous for black. Still, we can proceed to push this pawn further with the move d5. So this pawn would be a very annoying pawn for black to play against. So that's why here in this particular position, Daniil Dubov didn't play e takes d4. He played a6, kicking away the knight, and now Jorden van Foreest plays a very nice counterattack, not retreating immediately with the bishop, with the knight, pardon me, with the move d5. Here knight to b5 was played before by Daniil Dubov, and here knight to a3, protecting this bishop on c2. If you take, for instance, c takes b4, it's not so good because queen to b5 can be played now. White has several weaknesses. White has this weak pawn on b3 and on b4. Still, black has the possibility to push something like e4 here and discovering this very important dark square diagonal and attacking the rook. After something like bishop to d3, here queen to d7 can be played, but now bishop to e3 is possible. It's still an equal game, I think, but I simply don't like these weaknesses, these three weak pawns in white's position. So that's why here better way was to proceed like Jorden van Foreest did here. Knight to a3, knight takes c4, knight takes c2, knight takes c2 was played, and now rook to c8, and now of course we have the move c4, and now we have a very firm pawn structure. If you try e4 here, then queen to e4 is possible. After bishop takes a1, knight takes a1, we have queen to f5, the possibility, but now you see queen to d4 is very dangerous. After something like, I don't know, knight to d7, bishop to b2. This dark square diagonal will be the main object of white's attack, so that's why giving up the dark square bishop in this particular position is very risky. So again, Daniil Dubov didn't play here this move e4, discovering this diagonal. He played a more calm move f5, but still with the possibility to play the move e4. Now e4 is a serious threat because the e4 pawn will be protected by this f5 pawn. In the game, bishop to a3 was played, and now rook to f7. Now if you try here e4, it's not a problem. Queen to e3 can be played. If you take the rook, we can still also take the rook on f8. Rook takes f8, rook takes a1, but now after something like f5, f4, you see it's not possible because this knight is hanging, so you have to play something like knight to c8, and here you can play knight to d4. So now this knight comes on a very active square on e6, and I think this is now completely winning position for white with this dominant knight on the 6th rank. I think it will be game over, still with the possibility to somehow push these pawns further and really even try a promotion of the pawn. So in the game, after bishop to a3, here rook to f7 was played, here rook to c1 played by Jorden van Foreest, rook to e8, and now you see these pawns are rolling. This is it, what Jorden van Foreest tried. Now we have a powerful central control. This is really an annoying pawn storm. Here e4, Daniil Dubov tried a counterattack, queen to e2, and now knight to c8. You cannot take the pawn. This is the problem, because you get queen to c4 attacking the knight. If you try to protect it, then knight to e3 loses the knight. You can maybe take, but now you see this is the problem. Rook takes d8, you have to cover, and now we can take this knight, and white is continuing the game with one rook up, so this is game over for black. In the game, after queen to e2, you see knight to c8 was played. Now queen to c4 with some discovered attack possibilities, maybe something like d6. This is a very important diagonal for the queen. Knight to a7, and now knight to d4 with the preparation to play finally knight to e6. This will be really a dangerous knight. In the game, f4 was played, and this was again maybe Daniil Dubov's slight inaccuracy, but if you try even something like e3, it's not so dangerous, because we can simply take f takes e3, after rook takes e3, c6. You see it's very dangerous. This pawn is rolling. After b takes c6, we have d takes c6 attacking the queen, queen to c8, but now bishop to c5 is very dangerous. If you try maybe to take the pawn, it's not possible, because we have knight to c6. You see discoverly attacking the rook, so the rook can play maybe a counter attack with rook to e4. That's why here, but you can cover with the bishop here on d4, and again piece is lost. So again, this is game over for black. In the game, as said, after knight to d4, f4 was played, and now comes this very nice octopus knight, knight to e6. This is really a great positional game now by Jorden van Foreest, really having the pieces basically on the best squares. The rooks are on very active files. The knight is centralized on a very active square, really dominant here on this very powerful square. This bishop is aiming also, the queen is aiming on c4, so this is a very nice control of the center, and this is basically game over for black. Let's see what happened. Knight to b5, we have bishop to b4, just staying with this bishop on this very active diagonal, and now the serious threat is the move c6. e3 was played, we have knight to g5 attacking the rook, and now e takes f2, we have king takes f2, and now queen to f5. Basically, you don't have better moves. If you, of course, play something like rook to d6, then you rook to e7, then you get d6 discoverly attacking the king and also the rook, so the rook would be lost. So black doesn't have good moves here, I think. After king takes an f2, here queen to f5 was played, and here Jorden van Foreest simply took knight takes f7. We have the counter attack, rook to e4, but now a very interesting move, c6, and in this position Jorden van Foreest sacrificed the queen. I really like this move. Here after king takes f7, we have c takes b7, and now Daniil Dubov took the queen, but now b takes c4. Very cool move, I think, attacking the knight. Now this pawn is really dangerous. It can be supported. The most important thing is that this pawn can be supported with the dark square bishop. After queen to e5, here Jorden van Foreest simply took, not hesitating for a second. After queen to b2, we have king to f1, and now bishop to bishop to e5 here, preventing this promotion of the queen on b8. But now, of course, d6, cutting off this very important diagonal. And now Daniil Dubov tried sort of a desperate try here with the move f3, g takes f3, not a problem. Okay, you have here the possibility to attack, queen to b3. There are now some check possibilities, but now king to e2, here queen to e6 played by Daniil Dubov with some discovered attack possibilities. And now rook to c7, very important in between check, because this check cuts off also this dark square diagonal. Here in the game, king to f6 was played, and now finally the promotion. And okay, here Daniil Dubov has several checks, bishop to f4, discoverly attacking the king. King to d3, we have queen to d5. Here we have king to c2, not a problem. Here again, black has some checks, but now after bishop to e5, we have king to d3, and now after queen to b3, king to e4, and in this position Daniil Dubov resigned. You can maybe try here queen takes b4, but again, king to e3. If you try some checks, then rook to d3, it's not a problem. No more checks by the queens are possible. You can maybe try bishop to f4, but now king takes f4, and if you try to take the rook, then you get checkmated here. Queen to h8, and now queen to e5, and it's game over. So as said, in this position, after king to e4, Daniil Dubov resigned. This is a completely winning position for white. Nothing, black cannot do anything here, and this is a great attack, I think, by Jorden van Foreest, sacrificing the queen. Really great improvement of the position of the pieces, getting the pawns rolling. This was a huge attack, and Jorden van Foreest, as said, has now 2 points out of the possible 3. He has lost 1 game, but also won 2 games. Only Jorden van Foreest and Alireza Firouzja have won 2 games in this tournament, so this is also a huge accomplishment. And we'll see. I wish him all of the best in the continuation of the tournament. He's playing at home, so anything can happen in this very nice tournament. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this game. Meanwhile, you can watch my other commented chess games from the series, and you can also watch my best chess games of all time if you want to see the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history. And you can also subscribe to my channel if you like this content. Thanks you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.